last week on the Nicoletti Show. I'm so excited. Without further ado, Mark Rotto and Dominic Andrioli, just so you know, they drove all the way from Naples to come up here.
The partnership that we have is really unique just because we complement each other really well.
You can't have two people that have the same skill sets. It's never going to work, especially when you have to manage a team of people.
Having the right team is it's critical to allow us to focus more on working on the business and not just in the business,
right.
Which is just absolutely crucial, right? Because when you're just so focused on, the small tasks, it really does weigh you down.
At some point, it's going to pan out for you. And if you want it as bad as you think you do, just never, ever, ever give up. Keep going.
The reason we're here is because we never gave up.
I got the t-shirts for you. The Nicoletti t-shirt for Mark.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then this is Dominic's right here.
Perfect.
Wow, this is amazing.
Perfect. I'll be repping this.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. I never get to see that until the show actually starts. And that was an awesome episode with Mark and Dominic. If you didn't get a chance to check out that episode, these guys are killing it in the Florida market. They're young, they're hungry, they're ready to go, and you got to check them out. Go check out the episode from start to finish, their whole journey about how they really during the pandemic, and it's crazy what they're doing right now. And I look forward to seeing them and their successes as they keep growing. So check that out. And you can check out all the content on the Nicoletti Show, which is on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and the show, which is live. It's Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Tonight's a special one that's at Monday, 9 p.m. But check it out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, all those places. You can check out the show, the micro, and anything coming out on probate, quiet titles, the weird and different world in the title world. So check all that stuff out. You are all in for a treat tonight. And before I introduce the guests, I'll do my whole intro, but make sure you got your pens, your papers, you're just ready to take notes on tax strategies for real estate investing. Some of the things that Jordan and Josh are going to cover tonight is going to be electric, because some of these things a lot of investors can use. And, a lot of times they're spending a lot of money and the capital gains are huge. So this stuff gets crazy. It's wild. They see so many crazy things. So you got to take notes, see what happens. And I'm in for a treat. I got my notebook ready. I got the whole thing ready to go. So let's dive in, everybody. Hey, everybody. My name is Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida. And welcome to the Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and beyond, bringing on people that are showing us so many things in the real estate market and business market, and people I'll be bringing on to show how you can bring your game and stay at high performance while you're in the real estate game, and show you how you can take your business to the next level. These guys I have on my show, Jordan Michael and Josh Nelson, are really into the tax strategies for real estate investing. Let me just tell you before I bring them on how I met them. So Tim Mize having an event at the Hero event back in April. And it was crazy because I did a whole thing on probate on day 2. And I'm at the event. I do my whole presentation. And I remember after the presentation, another guy came up, and it was Josh Nelson. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I wonder what this guy's all about. And he's a powerful speaker. He gets up there, is talking all about trust and stuff and tax strategies. And when he was talking about probate and trust and grant or revocable trust and all these tax savings. I thought it was crazy. I mean, some of the stories that he was able to tell and what some people are seeing in the market was amazing. And getting to meet Jordan and Amanda. I know Amanda's watching out there. Awesome stuff. So I can't wait to dive in. Anybody that has questions for these guys, you know we're going to answer them live. We're here to answer them live. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Josh Nelson, Jordan Michael. Welcome, guys. What's happening?
What's going on, brother?
What's happening, Al? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, it's another day. It's Monday. It's crazy how we could just sit here. We're entrepreneurs. We're working all day. And you know what? At 9 o'clock at night, we have high energy, ready to rock and roll on the show. So, guys, we got to hear, how you got started in this. Introduce yourselves. Where did this all start for you before we get into a lot of the tax strategies that we're going to cover?
Awesome. I'll let Josh start with that one.
Yeah, so I got involved in this industry really because I was making a lot of money in network marketing, and nobody ever taught me anything about tax strategy, investing, anything. And so when I was young, my wife and I built an organization of about 100,000 distributors. We were in 9 different countries, traveling the world, making a ton of money. And we got to the point where we kind of like went into retirement mode, right? And all of our money basically went away. And a friend of mine ended up introducing me to something called the infinite banking concept. And from there, I went down that rabbit hole, and it just turned into everything that I needed to know that I didn't know. And I realized that the entire financial system is I call it a scam. You can call it whatever you want, but that's how I got involved. I got involved because basically I did what my mom and dad taught me to do, and I was successful. I made a bunch of money, and I thought I had arrived, and then all of a sudden it wasn't what I thought, so that's what got me into the business.
Yeah, Jordan, tell us and I got to hear like how you and Josh like got together on this whole thing, but like that's probably a whole story in and of itself. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how did it get started for you? Like, where were you even before all this, before you got really into explaining to people how you can really save on so many, capital gains and there's tax strategies out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's funny because exactly what we do here at Infinite Wealth Strategist has always been a passion of mine from a learning aspect, right? I've always sat back. I've said the same thing to myself. Our financial system is rigged. The banking system is rigged. The IRS is rigged. They're taking people's hard-earned money. And since 18 years old, when I got my first paycheck and I saw that somebody else had claim to my money, I was very passionate about trying to figure out how to eliminate that from my environment. And, 2019, at the end of the year, 2019, I sold my yacht management business. I got nailed on capital gains there. I wanted to start a real estate investment business, which we have. I made a lot of money in wholesaling for the first year. And during that, that time of building that business, I didn't want to fall into the same trap of paying a lot of taxes. So it was a friend of mine had mentioned something about infinite banking. I had done a little bit of research over the years about that, and I came in contact with one of their agents at Infinite Wealth Strategist. And I started asking like higher level questions. I was just not prepared for answering the questions that I had. So I immediately linked up with Josh and, Kevin, the COO. And we spent several months going back and forth of me learning about what it was that they were doing. And I really started diving into these trusts and, Vortex banking. And it literally blew the top of my head off. I was like, the more I learned, the more I realized that everybody that I come into contact with, especially all these masterminds that I'm in with real estate investors, I started realizing everybody needs to have this as part of their ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Right. What we're able to do, we're essentially taking ourselves out of the same sandbox that everybody in, and we're able to do some really unique things with this strategy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because I know when we were talking backstage about a lot of the things that we're going to cover today, whether it's about the trust, building environments to avoid probate, tax deferring on K-1 distributions, passive income and gain strategies, eliminating the need for 1031. You guys you've seen so much since you all have started, and you've seen the ways investors can save. I mean, the 1031 thing is so popular. I mean, you know how many people post about that in the real estate groups? And then I remember, I remember, Jordan, you were posting about that, something the other day about like, you really have to get into all that stuff. You could really just focus in on some of this other thing. But I think we should break down a lot about what these strategies are, starting with like the basic steps for anybody that's doing investing. What's some of the first steps they can take so we can dive step by step, one into another on tax deferring and trust? Because, we got to save that grantor revocable trust thing that Josh talked about at the Hero event, at some point, because that thing was crazy too.
Yeah, I think we really should jump into the trust, because really the trust is the key, right? And when you're doing real estate investing, I mean, there's a lot of things that you want. Number one, you want protection for your business, right? You don't want people to be able to come after you for lawsuits and judgments and things like that, or people suing you because of whatever happens in business, right?
Slip and fall at a property.
Yeah, these things happen to businesses all the time, right? But the biggest thing really is, and Al, you know this because you're an attorney and you know how the system works, but when people understand that the system is rigged and how it's rigged, it's easy. It's almost like if you don't know the rules to a game, you're going to lose every single time, right? And most people don't know the rules to the tax game. And the rules really are is that if you're operating as an individual or you're operating under a government entity like an LLC, C Corp, S Corp, which are government products that you're renting from them basically, you're a part of their tax system and you're liable to all that legislative law and all those rules, which we know that the government loves lots of rules, right? They want to confuse things so much to where people don't know how to take advantage of the tax code. And that's the problem. I ask clients all the time, have you read the tax code? No, I just pay my tax guy. Well, then how do you know that you're saving every single penny that you can? Because that's what the tax code is for. But if you take out the tax code, and you may or may not know this, but the book that they use in school is about 1/3 of the entire whole tax book, because they don't want the tax people to know how the elites are saving all this money, right? When you get up into the 600 and 700 codes is where like a lot of accountants don't even know how to operate, right? Because they're dealing in the lower codes and like the 500, 501Cs and things like that. But when you get up into the higher codes, like we use an IRS code that's in the 600s that literally allows us to defer all capital gains. Well, if everybody knew that code was in the book, don't you think every single person would use it? Who wants to pay capital gains? I mean, really.
Interesting. So there's a lot more to the code than what a lot of people know is what you're saying. There's more out there, something else out there.
The IRS code book was written for people to use to not pay taxes, right?
True story.
What all those codes are for, right? So your tax guy needs to know all the codes to know that you're taking advantage of every deduction that you can take. And that's why if you take, let's say I go to one tax guy and get my taxes done, and I go to another tax guy and he reviews it, they're all going to come up with a different number. It's never going to be exactly the same. And that is the problem. And our trust solves the problem. And we can get into that later, because the trust removes you from that legislative system. Because we do live in a country, thank God, we still have something called the Constitution. And as long as that is still there, right, which we should protect with everything we got, there's something called contract law. And you and I, Al, can enter into a contractual agreement legally without the government's interference, and we can operate a business that way. But most people don't know that, because they're taught, go get an LLC, go get an S Corp, or, all these complicated tax strategies, or you got to live in Puerto Rico, half a year. I have clients like that where I've actually gotten people to be able to move back to the States, and be with their family because they were living, 6 months there, 6 months here, just to get tax benefits. It's crazy what people do just to save money. It's insane.
Josh, I'm actually speaking with somebody now that I'm going to bring to the table eventually that's in a mastermind with me, who said my next step is moving to Puerto Rico. And I'm like, no. We got to sit you down. We got to build a strategy. You're not fleeing the country just so you can save some money on taxes.
See, but you guys realize how bad the problem is, though. Like, if you really think about it, it's almost kind of funny. that people would leave the country that they live and work in to go live somewhere else just to save money on taxes.
Yeah, there's somebody I know that they were paying a lot of capital gains, and one of their friends had said, "Hey, if you want to, ease on that a little bit, move to Puerto Rico." So they moved to Puerto Rico. So like, I can relate with the story because I've heard stories like that, and it's crazy. So what, of course, we could dive in on some of the things that you're seeing on your end on the ways to avoid probate, tax defer, and all that. What specifically are you seeing in the code that's helping these and developing these strategies to help a lot of the investors with high volume and a lot of capital gains?
So the main code that we use is really what makes the tax benefit of the trust work. And this code allows us to defer all capital gains and all passive income. So, I mean, real estate, hello, passive income and capital gains is what it's all about, right? If you're doing it right. And that code allows us to defer that, okay? Not eliminate and not avoid, right? Mm-hmm. Or not avoid. We're deferring it, right? But we're deferring it in perpetuity because of the way that this particular trust works. Unless you make a distribution out of the trust, the capital gains can be deferred into perpetuity, right? And then because it's in a trust, we can then use that deferred money for trust business expenses and providing for beneficiaries and things like that, which basically makes it permanently deferred or tax-free, right? Because if I close a real estate transaction and I'm able to legally defer the money, hold it in the trust, and then use that to provide for my daughter, my wife, and housing and things like that for the beneficiaries, and investing in the businesses that the trust is running, once I spend the money, it's out of the trust now. So there'll never be any tax due on it. So when we get into the details of it, there's a lot of ways to get money out of the trust without making a distribution. And see, that is the whole key right there.
So let's dive in on that. So it sounds like this all really surrounds the trust and being able to really get into that. And Jordan, I see you're just like, yeah, this is where it's going, right? So let's just go into it, right? What are the details of it? Like what are the mechanisms of it on the ways you're avoiding this stuff?
Well, let's jump into the infinite banking first, right? And let's talk about, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers have heard of infinite banking. I'm sure a lot of people have read Nelson Nash's book, Become Your Own Banker. The infinite banking concept's what drew me in, right? And that's what draws a lot of real estate agents in too, because it's a pretty sexy thing when you can take investment capital, load it into a policy, right, with a guaranteed return, and then be able to access that money back out without interrupting any compound growth in there, and then leverage that money in real estate while the money is earning inside the policy, okay? That's a very attractive concept, right? Your money's making money while your money's making money, right? Which is what all wealthy people teach us to do. The problem is that with infinite banking, okay, and the Nelson Nash, the old way of doing it, is you can't really do true infinite banking, because infinite banking is, if I borrow $1,000, I'm going to pay myself back $1,000 plus some interest, right? Well, in a normal standard IBC policy, your premium is set at whatever it is. So if it's $1,000 a month, I can't put in 1,015, right? I can only pay $1,000 a month. So theoretically, I can really never fund my policy any more than what my premium is written for, okay? So therefore, I can pretend that I'm playing banker, right? Maybe I can wait till I have $50,000 in cash value in my policy, and then I can borrow 10 and then, pay back a little bit more, right? The way we build these policies, because of the trust unlocks what's called the cash warehouse in these policies, okay? And what that means is that on a traditional IBC policy, we have to add a term rider on there. And that jacks the death benefit up so we can shove a bunch of cash in there, okay? With the trust, we don't have to do that because the trust isn't subject to any tax, right? The government has something called a modified endowment contract. And if a whole life policy is making too much of an ROI, the government wants to come in and tax you. So insurance agents have to do creative things where they have to add riders on the policy to avoid that tax, okay? If a client purchases our trust, we just have the trust be the owner of the policy, and now the trust becomes the tax shelter. So now we can overfund this trust, and we can actually overfund it with more money than the premium, which turns it into a modified endowment contract, right? Which is now acting more like an investment vehicle versus just a whole life policy. The trust isn't subject to the tax. So where's that 1099 going to go now? Not to an individual. It's going to go to the trust, who has its own EIN and its own bank account, not you as the individual. And because our trust is non-grantor, the IRS does not look at the trust as an alter ego of you. They look at the trust as its own entity that you're now just controlling. Does that make sense?
Josh, you're a master with this stuff when it comes to understanding this. Like Jordan, I'm like we're getting schooled on taxes over here. I mean, you know this stuff like Josh, but it's like this kind of stuff a lot of people don't understand with like the entities and the EINs and alter egos and the purpose behind it, right? So like, you know, for Josh, for you, this is like an everyday thing, right? Like for me with probate and the spouse, the kids, the grandkids, like I could spit that out just like you. It's like, it really helps knowing people like you and Jordan that can really understand like the benefits of having something like this. Because think about how many people at events and networking, they want to say, what's the difference? You know, LLC and trust. And, you know, a lot of people say LLCs because you can do the write-offs, but then other people like trust, and you like the trust like Jordan for this very reason. And I think a lot of people want to know those benefits, right? The benefits of why is it good to have that trust, have that tax EIN, or have that estate account trust thing right there, right? See, I don't know anything about that stuff like you guys, but I know some of the lingo, seeing it in that probate world, right? So
see, it gets confusing. What gets confusing though is that just the word trust itself, right? When somebody hears about a trust, they think of legislative law because that is what we're taught. Okay, the trust that we
living
have,
trust, land trust,
living trust, right? This is not a living trust. A living trust is created by the federal government. That is just it's a trust, but it's a government trust, right? Which means the government wrote that trust. The trust that we have is written by people like you and me, right? They're written by obviously attorneys, but it's people like you and me back 500 years ago in Europe. This is when it started. It was under King Henry IV is when this actual trust was created. And it was because people like us, the entrepreneurs of that time, they were getting properties, land, and assets seized by the government, with the kings of that time, right? So that's why they came together and they created this trust document under contract law, which means lawyers wrote this particular trust language to protect the interest of the trust and the beneficiaries of the trust, not the government. See, if you have a living trust, that's designed to protect the government. I mean, it helps with probate and things like that, but it doesn't protect you from taxes. You can still get sued and you can still lose assets. If I have an asset in a living trust and I get sued, let's say Al doesn't like, color of my shirt, and he sues me and he wins. The government can reach right inside my living trust because it's my alter ego. The government looks at that trust, because again, it's legislative law, as I came up with the idea to create the trust. I went to an attorney and said, hey, I want you to create a trust for me. You create it for me. It's my trust. And now I'm just going to convey my assets into this trust that's mine. So it's still my property in my trust, which will help when I die with probate, but it doesn't help with it. I don't even know why they call it a living trust, because it doesn't really do much for you when you're living. Our trust now, because it's non-grantor, we have what's called a settler. The settler, they're the one that signs the trust document to bring it to life. And then they appoint you, the trustee and the trust guardian, and then they sign a resignation letter. And now they can have nothing to do with the trust ever again. They're done. They're off. Okay. Because of that settler, the Government now looks at this trust as what's called non-grantor, which means they now look at you as only the trustee, the manager of the trust. You have no legal liability to anything in the trust anymore. Now, if you commit fraud or break the law, that's different, right? But if I sell a real estate property into the trust now, I sell it to the trust. I'm not conveying it. I'm doing a legal sale now where the trust now owes me money, right? We do what's called a demand note. This demand note is how we get money out of the trust without having to pay any taxes. So let's say I sell $1 million property to the trust. Trust carries $1 million demand note that's drawing interest every year. And let's say I want to take my wife on a vacation. Well, the trust can't pay for that. I'm the trustee. That's a personal vacation, right? The trust can legally not pay for a personal vacation. Well, all I got to do is take $5,000 out of the trust account, tell my accountant, hey, just take that off my demand note. That's just money that the trust owed me, that it never paid me. That is not a distribution.
Using it for business purposes.
No, I'm using it for personal use. But remember, I sold the asset. Now, if I'm using it for business use or anything that has to do with the trust, so if the trust is running my real estate business, I'm never going to spend any of my personal money on the real estate business anymore. It's not my real estate business. I'm still controlling it. See, here's the thing, Al, and what I figured out about the elite system versus the regular system for everybody else, it's all wordplay, which is what politicians do all the time, right? All they did was they changed one word for themselves that's different than us, and then they sold us the lie. And the lie is, hey, Al, in order to be successful in this country, you have to own stuff. The more you own, the more successful you are. Wealthy people don't own anything. They control everything. They get to drive the nice cars, live in the nice homes, fly in the private jets, but they don't own, they have no liability to any of those things. So if someone doesn't like the color of their shirt, good luck. They don't own anything because the trust, being non-grantor, separates the title of ownership and liability. So now, you get in a lawsuit, you show up to court, you open up your trust book, show the judge what type of trust it is. The judge is going to tell whoever's going after you, hey, this guy Al may look like he drives a Bentley and lives in a mansion, but he didn't own any of that stuff. He's lucky he gets to manage all of it, but there's nothing I can do. And by the way, these trusts have never been broken into in almost 500 years. Not once, not one turnover order, not one successful lawsuit, because a spendthrift trust cannot be sued.
It's crazy. I mean, a lot of this stuff, a lot of people probably don't even know, or they'll even look it up later, and they'll check out all your stuff on, and like we're doing during the show, we'll drop things on your Facebook groups, your names. You can check these guys out. They're all over. And I know Jordan, you've been like traveling like crazy with Amanda, just going all over, talking about this stuff, and Josh was at the Hero event with you. And it's just interesting hearing this stuff. And like Josh talking about the elite, the more wealthy. I mean, this is the kind of stuff they're doing. I mean, we see that with higher end properties, right? With higher end properties, most of them are in a trust. I mean, you go to the $2 million, $3 million properties, they're in a trust. Who knows if they're in the non-grant or revocable trust or trust, but
typically not, but yeah.
Not right. But a lot of people, so the investors that watch and the professionals that watch, when you get this type of trust or these kinds of trusts, can you just put all your properties in this one trust, or do you have to then start doing like how they have the parent LLC and then the subordinate LLCs? You just
don't have to do any of that.
Load everything in.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I have. It's crazy because I'm talking to a few people as well right now that are trying to convince me that I need like 17 different entities in order to run a business. And they're teaching this stuff, and then they put it up on a whiteboard at a mastermind, and I'm like, this is absolute craziness. You got your holding companies, and then your LLCs, and then your land trusts, and all this stuff. And I'm like, no. With our trust, what I've learned, over about 2 years now that I've been digging into this, is that you want it to own everything. You don't want to have any ownership of anything, because then you're not liable for the stuff that you're controlling. It's a whole different ball game. And it's funny because when I try to educate and empower others to show them that there's, when you put up that whiteboard and you've got 15 different entities to run 2 businesses, for some reason, people are more comfortable in thinking that that's the way that it's supposed to go. And I'm trying to show them this one little circle here. And I'm like, no, 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 we can just put everything in this little circle, right? And it's going to give you 10 times more power than what you're doing over here with all this, this craziness. And good luck explaining that. If you decide to fire your accountant and you want to move that tax strategy to another firm, good luck with that. With our strategy, we're just putting everything inside of one trust. We're operating out of one trust. It's so much cleaner. It's probably the most above board and cleanest strategy that I've seen presented ever, bar none. And I'm passionate about learning about taxes.
Yeah, and I know we were talking backstage about this, Jordan, which is you even you had a friend drive from North Carolina down to Florida, and they were telling you some crazy story about their father's accountant explaining all about like the capital gains, and he has that HVAC system. Tell that story, because this is really interesting when it comes to saving on those capital gains and hearing those crazy stories out there.
Yeah, so this is actually a friend of ours that, just by chance decided to come over to our house. Every year we try to do like a Friendsgiving type of thing. And I do a lot of fundraisers throughout the year because I'm very passionate about, giving back into the universe and, giving back to less fortunate. So we threw a Friendsgiving, and a friend of ours drove down. He's actually going to be an agent of ours now that he's seeing what we're doing. He's becoming passionate about it. And he was telling me that, his father is getting ready to sell his HVAC business. And the accountant is telling them that he's going to pay, something close to $200,000 in capital gains. So this gentleman worked all of his life. He's in his 60s. He worked all of his life, built this company with his bare hands, hired all these people, has been paying taxes on this business forever. Every single year he's paying out tons of taxes in order to run this business. And now he wants to exit and he wants to enjoy his life. And he gets that knife dug in one last time of saying like, hey, I know you're going to sell your business, but, and thank you for being so profitable. And because of that, we'd love to extract another $200,000 from you as a thank you for doing business with the federal government. And when you hear stories like that, it's like crippling to somebody who's in that situation, who's looking at, they're looking at their statement and they're saying, I'm going to sell my business for this. My accountant's telling me I have to account for this, which is, that 20, 30, 40%, whatever it is. And then this is what I get at the end of it. And you look at that final number, and I can't imagine being in my 60s and looking at that and thinking I'm going to give more than a quarter of what's supposed to be coming to me to somebody else. And they played no part in helping me build that. It's like having a really, crappy business partner. So we were able to get the trust in place. He placed a lot of faith in us. We explained the strategy. He's an older gentleman, so new things like this don't come super quick to be like, oh, yeah, why haven't I heard of this in 60 years? Is this legit? And, we crossed that threshold. We got it in place. And I get messages from him frequently. It's like a blessing. I get messages from him frequently just saying like, thank God I was able to come across you guys, however that happened, through his son or whatever it is, and be able to claw back that money, and keep that money in my pocket because we put the trust in place. We were able to have the trust sell the business as opposed to him sell the business. And now he's going to save all that money. And then because we're not just a one-stop shop, we're not just a trust company. We really want to partner with our clients and be a part of their success long-term. So now we're bringing in this phenomenal, Vortex banking, infinite banking policy on the back end. And all of that money that the IRS was going to take from him for doing nothing for him, we're now going to throw that into one of these specially designed Vortex policies where he's going to earn uninterrupted compound interest on all of that money for the rest of his life. And he's going to be able to tap into that frequently, tax-free.
Hey, and that story gets even better though, because not only did the dad sell the business, right, and it was $170,000 to be exact that he saved in capital gains, but they also do real estate together with the son, and they put some of their real estate properties into the trust and then sold those and avoided the capital gains. And then the properties that they're still holding to today, they sold to the property or to the trust, and they're renting that out, and all that rental income is all passive income now. So,
oh yeah, all tax deferred.
This
So
is
now
just one client that we've probably saved, I mean, well over $250,000. And I mean, this is a typical everyday story for us.
it's going to get more
It really
too.
is amazing. Yeah,
it's going to get more because now we've shifted his entire way of thinking, because most investors factor in the taxes into their deals. I get text messages frequently of him saying, like, I have to coach myself to think differently now that I have this tool that allows me to do things that other investors that are playing in the same area as me, they don't have it. So they can't compete with me.
Think about it. If you're bidding on a property, Al, or any of your clients, right? And let's say they're at an auction, right? My clients have better margins because they don't have to pay capital gains tax. They can buy the property for more money, where all the other guys in the room are going to be like, how the hell are these guys paying that much for the property? They're not going to make any money. Yet they're making money hand over fist every single time. And that's why a lot of our clients try to keep the trust close to their chest in their local market so that they don't let all their competition know what kind of tool they're using,
Yeah. Where have you seen this become most popular? Like any particular states or any particular real estate markets, or really just all over?
All over the country. I mean,
wherever there's a taxable event, we show up like freaking Captain Planet.
I believe at this point, I believe at this point we now have clients in just about every state across the United States.
That's crazy. Yeah. Everywhere you guys go, whether it's Florida or California or you out in Las Vegas, no matter where you are, there's people.
Now, you talked about 1031s. What about eminent domain? This trust protects from that too. I got a story with, we had a client here in Texas, older guy, and he ended up purchasing the trust. He owned a ranch in between McKinney and Plano, and there's a road there now called Rollator. Well, that road went right through his property, right? Well, the government came and tried to seize his land with eminent domain. And he told the government, they gave him a price for the property. He said, no, thanks. And they said, oh, well, we're just going to use eminent domain and we're going to force you to take the price. And he goes, no, it's okay. No, thank you. Well, they ended up coming back. And the attorneys came back later, and they ended up buying that property from him for 16 times what they originally offered him for it, just to get it. Because the trust protects from eminent domain.
That's crazy. I didn't even know. That was a surprise one right there. We didn't plan on talking about how eminent domain plays a role with the trust, but
this trust is the gift that just keeps on giving. I'm telling you, we have the best accountants, bookkeepers, and just disclaimer, I'm not a tax advisor. I give tax strategies because I understand contract law. So I teach people how tax strategy and contract law works, because obviously I'm not a tax advisor for legislative law, which, basically is the mafia's tax collectors, right? Not that they're bad people, but that's really what they're designed to do, right? Is the government creates all the rules, and then they train the tax people. That's why people ask me, are you a tax person? No, and I would never want to be, because that means I have to go learn a broken system, and then I got to go teach that to people, We want to teach people how to protect yourself and your family, and kind of just isolate yourself in your own little financial bubble so that you have your own family economy that you control, not the government or politics.
So is this where we do the disclaimer?
Yeah, exactly. I always got to throw the disclaimer.
I'm not an accountant, so make sure you do your due diligence on everything out there. Make sure
that damn legislative law, man.
We'll put that on the last week on the Al Nicoletti Show, like right in the beginning, right?
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not financial advice.
Yeah, not financial advice. Do your own due diligence out there. So, before we dive into more stuff, because I want to talk about 1031 exchanges, I'm learning so much. I don't know about you all out there. I see people that are commenting, and I just want to go to the comment section. Just so many people. Jerry, he was talking about the thing with people living in Puerto Rico. I don't know who those people are. It comes up sometimes as like Facebook user. I don't know why it does that, but Frank Spalding is in the house. Frank, thanks for watching.
Frank.
He's there. And then Joe Roig. Roeg's in the house. He said, these guys are amazing. I agree. Like I said, I saw Josh and Jordan at the Hero event. I knew what was going on. And the whole presentation you did, Josh, was fantastic. I mean, people were all about that, especially after. And then, you have people that are really watching the show tonight. And the audience is a lot of real estate people, professionals, investors, people that have businesses. I get messages now daily from people that either see the show, the YouTube channel. So people participate and watch this stuff. And eventually, when this goes even live later, even on iTunes and Spotify, they'll hear about this stuff. So if you guys are listening on iTunes and Spotify, make sure you check out their contact info in the blocks below. You'll see all that stuff. Guys, let's talk about the 1031 exchange. Jordan, I know you've been lately, I pay attention. I see things on Facebook, right? I know you've been a big proponent about like the not having the need for a 1031 exchange and using a different mechanism. What is that all about that you've seen with the strategy that you guys are able to do eliminates the need for the 1031?
Well, what I see is, when I entered into real estate, I wanted to be super successful. Part of doing that was to start networking. In networking, I basically inserted myself into every real estate group that you can imagine, whether it's South Florida, national, whatever it is, hundreds of thousands of people in these groups. And the one thing that pops up most frequently in every single one of these groups is either how do you do a 1031 exchange, or I have a client with a 1031 exchange. We're running out of time. We need to identify a property. We need to get something under contract. And then on the back end of that, what I see a lot of times is investors, because of the timeline. So the entire purpose of a 1031 exchange is to be able to sell your real estate, right? And move that money and potentially grow your portfolio and get larger chunks of real estate. And you don't want to pay capital gains. That is the only reason why the 1031 exchange even exists, is to defer the capital gains. So you're moving from the same asset, you're moving money from the same asset into the same asset class, and you don't want to pay taxes on that. That's the only thing that it does. Now, the limitations on this thing is you have to identify a property within 45 days, right? So the moment you execute this, you are under the gun to try to identify a property within 45 days that you have to get under contract. Now, you must also close on that property within 90 days. So the clock is ticking. Now, what happens when you have a clock ticking on your back and all you're trying to do is just grow your portfolio?
Make bad decisions.
A lot of people find themselves in bad properties. They find themselves moving their money into another asset that is going to underperform the previous asset that they had, or it's just not going to give them the return that they were looking for. And it was probably because they couldn't identify something fast enough. And if you don't identify something, then the taxes are going to get hit anyway. So now it's like, it's just it's one of those unnecessary challenges that I don't think people should have in their business. You want to grow your portfolio? You want to grow it tax-free? Great. Give us a call, because our trust in the way that it's designed, right? I can eliminate the 1031 exchange. I can allow a person to sell their entire portfolio outside of the trust. They can legally defer the taxes, the capital gains taxes that would be triggered. And because of that, the taxes stay in their ecosystem. And now they have much more options that they can do with that money. They can move it into a stock portfolio, a crypto portfolio. They can go purchase a motorcycle with that tax deferred money. They can go purchase vehicles. They can buy a business. They're not stuck in that same asset class, and they have no time constraints, right? The money stays in the corpus of the trust. They've deferred the taxes. There's no regulation on what they must do with that money that we've saved or that we've deferred the taxes on, right? So when I see people complaining about the 1031 all the time, or like, they have clients that are trying to exercise the 1031, I come in there and my job really, and my passion is to come in there and educate and empower them to say, hey, make this your last 1031 exchange. Make this the last time that you're going to use that tool, because here's a better way. Because first of all, it costs money. And if you make a bad decision, you're going to lose money. Now, after a conversation with me and after putting our strategy in place, you're not going to ever have to use a 1031 exchange ever again, number one. And then you're going to get 1,500 other added bonuses because you now have this tool, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I had one guy that was on the show that talked all about 1031 exchanges, and we saw what that kind of looked like. I mean, you got to do your investing and all of that, but then we see what you guys are talking about, and how with this strategy you don't need it. It's really interesting seeing both perspectives, right? Had one guy on, you guys on. That's crazy, right? You have how many
people
investors
are passionate about 1031s, and I can't understand it, because for me, it just seems limiting. It seems challenging. It seems, it's outdated, and the only purpose for it is to defer capital gains. So the only reason why it exists. So if you have
people want to work smart, not hard, right? And the problem with the government is any program like the 1031, they've got all these rules you have to follow. And that's the difference between contract law and legislative law. Contract law is basically operate with common sense and morals, right? Don't break the law, don't commit fraud. That's how you're able to operate within the trust, right? Meaning you make the rules as long as you're not breaking the law or you're committing fraud. When you operate in these other entities, even with the 1031, right? Because again, we're going back to legislative law. We're back into that pool of having to follow all these rules again, right? And you can see just the way the 1031 operates. The government they don't want people to not pay capital gains. Come on, 45 days, 90 days, like it, especially in the market right now, that's not a lot of time at all. You know what I mean? And like Jordan said, I have so many real estate investors that have told me so many horror stories about, they pulled the trigger on a property because time was running out, and they just had to make a decision and they did it. And then they get into the property and they find out that it needs this or that because they didn't have enough time to really do the due diligence that they needed to. And again, that's the design of the rigged system, right? Nothing is designed to be easy in this financial system. But what I will tell you is that with the trust, our clients can breathe fresh air once they have it. Now, look, Nelson Rockefeller said, you want to own nothing but control everything. I just want everyone to think about everything we've said today and then just think about that one statement, because he basically gave the goods away, right? In that statement, he said, look, wealthy people, folks, own nothing. They control everything. They don't own anything, but they control everything. All it is a word, right? It's like whether I control the use of my phone or I own my phone. What's the difference? It's just that ownership, I don't have the liability of someone able to take it from me because it doesn't belong to me. But if I control it in another entity, you guys get my point. This will change your real estate game like nothing else, and it will completely simplify your business model. Like
I want to bring something back up too. The insane tax strategies that people have with all the holding companies and the land trusts and all that stuff. I mean, there are firms out there that teach this complicated strategy, and another reason why they teach this is because they're telling their clients that you want peace of mind and you want to have some layer of asset protection. That's another big thing. The only reason why people open up LLCs are for three reasons. Number one, the government tells you have to. Number two, you want to be able to, have expenses and tax savings. So you open up an LLC thinking that that's the way to go. And you want to shield yourself from liability, right? So then people get really tricky and they want to have like this entity own that LLC and then, a foreign account hold with this and that and all this crazy stuff. And the only reason why people jump through all those hoops is so that if something does happen, somebody is not going to sue them and take everything that they've built. Well, what I've learned about the trust, our trust, is that when you don't own these entities, when you don't own these properties, you can't be sued. So if something happens on a property, let's say somebody slips down a stairwell You know, let's say you got a property up north and it's cold and they slip down the stairwell. You're minding your business and you're eating dinner, and this property is in an LLC of yours. And heaven forbid you haven't structured the LLC properly. Most people don't. They don't even have an operating agreement, right? You get a phone call down the road that somebody slipped and fell on your property, and now they're suing you for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they find out, the attorneys find out that you're wealthy and you have other LLCs and you have other properties. And now, you know, like someone like Gene, you know, you get one of those types of attorneys, they're going to come after you and they're going to get everything on the table that they can, right, to come after you for. So when we put the trust in place, especially for our investors, and we're able to release them from that liability, people sit back and they say, wow, I can breathe easier knowing that if something does happen, nobody's going to take anything that I've built. The government can't take it. Attorneys can't take it. People suing me can't take it. And I can breathe easier because I know that I'm 100% protected, because you can't squeeze water from a rock. You can't, I mean, you can sue somebody that's got nothing, but you're going to get nothing, right? And you can try to go after a property in a spendthrift irrevocable trust. Good luck, because you're not going to get anywhere with that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It seems like the biggest takeaway is the power of this trust, right? The power of what it's able to do and almost shield your liabilities away, and help on capital gains. So avoiding probate liabilities for people potentially coming after you, and capital gains. I mean, you know, and you were talking about, Jordan, about like all of a sudden, like everybody's got like a different LLC for a different property, different land trust for every
Everybody
property.
does.
Yeah, and I saw somebody today, they posted and said, here we go, first property and first land trust. And I was like, all right, you know, I've seen some people actually stop that strategy because after a while it becomes a web and it gets really complicated,
Yes.
right? So this idea simplifies a lot of things. And I didn't know if we got into talking about deferring on K1 distributions. Jordan, did we cover that part?
Not yet. So I'll let Josh take that one.
You take that one, Jordan, because I got one more thing I want to cover after that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this really involves another trust that we have, which is the business trust. And essentially, when you have, let's say, an LLC, right? And like for us, we're licensed life insurance agents. We have to have an LLC because the government will not allow the trust to be licensed like that. So the beneficial trust that we have, it can defer the taxes, 100% of the taxes on a K1 distribution. So essentially, it's just a tax strategy where instead of me getting paid from my LLC or my LLC paying something else, we would just take a K1 distribution into our trust, and then the trust uses its power to defer the taxes on that.
Yep.
It's when I tell you it's the cleanest tax strategy I've ever seen. It's just so easy. It's, you know, what people have been taught is complicated. And when I show them, like when I draw them a little diagram on what we're doing, they're like, some of them are actually afraid because they're like, this is too simple. Like they get scared. They're like, this is too simple. It kind of makes me angry that it's so simple. You know, I have to learn a little bit more about this. And of course, tell them, you know, do your due diligence.
You guys see how the government brainwashed everybody, though? Everybody's programmed to think that the tax system is complicated. And that's why they
really
read the tax book and they just go pay a tax guy, or they go online and file their taxes, right? Because they don't want to mess up, right? But if you learn the code and you use the code, it's legal. We're using the tax code, IRS code 643B to be exact, which is actually written into our trust document. And another thing I'll add is that our trust is copywritten, which means we went an extra step, not we, but our trust provider, where they not only did they create the trust and write this all into the trust, but they actually took it. The IRS had to vet the document, right? Because when the IRS writes the code, it's how the IRS interprets the code, right? So now when the attorneys wrote the code into the trust document, we had to get the IRS to agree that our interpretation of the code, right, meaning we can defer all capital gains and all passive income, because they call it extraordinary dividends. Well, our interpretation of that is all capital gains and all passive income. Well, the IRS agrees with that. The Supreme Court agrees with that. After we got signed off on that, then we went and got a copyright issued, which is active currently, because of the type of clientele that we're working with. So, this trust is bulletproof. It is a titanium vault. But I did want to share one more thing real quick. Going back to the IBC portion of it, we attach these we don't attach, but we have the trust actually buy the policies on all the members of the trust, right? So let's say I'm the trustee. The trust would own a policy on me, on my wife, on my kids. Well, I had a client, and I want to show you guys the difference in how the trust can build wealth long term. Okay, this lady was 57 years old, and what we did is we put about $185,000 into this whole life policy the first year, and then she did $20,000 a year after that for, I believe, about 15 years. And actually, if you get a copy of my book, The Intelligent Banker, her whole story is in here. But to sum it up, we took a regular infinite banking policy, okay, and at age 85, okay, so she was 57. So at age 85, she would have had $460,000 in cash value, okay? Now, if you just add our trust in there, same amount of money up front, same amount of premium per year, okay, just by adding in our trust, not having to pay the gains and being able to overfund the policy with our Vortex strategy, after the same amount of time at age 85, we took her $460,000. And by the way, that's the ROI, not her cash value. That's how much money the policy made her over that time. It went from $460,000 to a $1.8 million ROI. So by buying the trust over the same amount of time of her life, contributing the same amount of money to the exact same policy, except versus her owning it and the trust owning it, we made her like $1.4 million more over her lifetime. Well, I call that a living benefit, right? This is a living benefit in the whole life policy. Now, we also took her death benefit, which we don't write these policies for the death benefit particularly, but she would have passed on about $1.5 million to her heirs had she died at age 85. Well, with the trust, same amount of money, same contribution, she would have passed on, or she is, because this is my client, $5.5 million. So is it worth your time to get a hold of Jordan and learn about this? Absolutely. Because guys, we're talking about a lot of money. The trust allows us to use a vehicle where we can compound every dollar that we ever earn in a system where we can still access that same dollar and go utilize it somewhere else. I don't know any other program where we can do that and compound money inside of a policy with a guaranteed rate of return on it. Powerful.
Yeah. I don't know.
Look at his face. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, hey, like I heard you on stage. I still was like, whoa. I mean, these are things that people don't hear about or talk about, right? I mean, when I saw you presented on stage for the first time, like it was like a long worded trust, and it sounded like a super shield, right? And people don't hear about these kinds of things. So, and especially how many investors out there want to save on capital gains or want to save money? I mean, all of them do, right?
Well, how about right now? How about under this current administration?
Yeah.
Capital gains rate is not what it used to be.
Crazy. Yeah. So these are strategies that can help in those situations. Talk about where we're at right now, inflation, right? I mean, Josh, I know you've talked about this before about like some of these strategies, especially in a time when inflation is at an all-time high, really help because everything's getting more expensive. And I mean, you've talked about that before. So that part's huge as well.
Well, at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much money you keep. And we've all heard that. Allows you to keep all of the money that you're making. Right now, you're going to pay some taxes. Like, don't get us wrong that you're going to pay zero, because only an idiot would pay zero. right? You don't want to pay zero. That's a big red flag to get audited. And by the way, none of these trusts have ever been audited, by the way. None of these spendthrift trusts, not one, has ever been audited. But you want to protect your money, and you want to be able to grow it in an environment where you have control, right? And this allows you to where every time you sell a property, you're not having to cut the federal government in on 20 to 40%. I mean, I don't know if the capital gain rate has gone up yet, but I know the Biden administration was talking.
They're working on it.
Yeah, they're talking numbers like 38 up to, I've heard up to 42. I mean,
they're working on it.
Like, are they trying to make people not want to do real estate? Because that would deter me. If I was paying 20 under one administration and then the next one went to 40, I mean, that's double the money that you're paying the government now, and you're the one doing all the work. That just doesn't make any logical sense.
And
to me.
let's think about 40% here for a second, right? The number, we throw it around loosely and we're like 40%, 40%, 40%, but
it's almost half.
Think about that. You're out there working and doing, if you're flipping houses, right? You've got a lot of challenges. I tip my hat to people who flip houses. I used to flip yachts. That was its own challenge in itself. But people flipping houses, they're out there really solving a lot of challenges. They're improving their community. They're improving the neighborhood. And of course, they're working for money. Who isn't? But to have, at the end of the day, the government come in and say, great job, looks good, I'll take my 40% at the end of the year. What? That's madness.
Yeah. Hey, Jordan, congratulations. You just made 100,000, but send us 40.
Yeah, send me 40. And then if you ask why, good luck getting an answer as to why. Oh, because roads. That's why.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys see a lot of things on your end, right? I'm sure you see a lot of things either from clients following, current events, and all of this stuff really adds up. And you're seeing where the trajectory is going and the strategies that kind of help people save more money and keep more money, right? And I know, Josh, you had a couple other wild stories out there with people that have either gone through the system or used the trust. Share with us some other crazy things that you've seen, whether you've gone through it or your clients have gone through it.
Well, I've got another story. So, I mean, what about like joint ventures and things like that, right? A lot of real estate people do joint ventures. The trust will help with that too. We've got, two 50-50 partners. These guys were in they were in multiple real estate deals, and we're talking like multi-million-dollar properties. When they were introduced to the trust, they were going to pay $650,000 in capital gains, Al. Like, you want to talk about a crazy story? We saved them. We were able to defer $650,000, and these folks were literally 2 weeks away from closing on these properties. Like, that's how fast we can move on this. We get clients all the time that come through, obviously, other investors that are telling their other friends about it, where they'll come to us and say, hey, I'm closing on a property in 18 days. Can you guys help me? Well, we can, as long as we can get the property sold into the trust prior to the final transaction being done. But yeah, I mean, as far as crazy stories, I mean, the craziest stories are just the obscene amount of money that we're saving people. I got another guy out in Arizona. This was actually one of my first like 10 clients. And I did a real estate call for a group called Alliance out in Arizona. This guy ended up calling me, similar to what we're doing now. He called me and said, hey, I got this property. I'm selling for about $2.5 million. This is what my capital gain is going to be. Literally within a matter of, I think it was about 7 days, we were able to set up the trust, get the property, because it was in an LLC. So we had to sell the property from the LLC back to him individually, then from him individually into the trust. Then he turned around and closed on that deal and sold capital gains on a $2.5 million real estate transaction. I mean, just that quick. So, I mean, that's what's crazy to me. What's crazy is that we can put a strategy together literally in a couple days, execute it, and not have to go move to Puerto Rico or set up, 57 different LLCs,
And Al, I just want to quickly jump in here and say this is what I became passionate about. when you hear these stories and the amount of money that is being saved, right, that I believe deserves to be saved. When I saw what was happening and I saw what was going on with the trust, and when I saw we unlocked the vault on these infinite banking policies, and I spent a long time, like Josh will tell you, I spent a long time. I was, calling them or messaging them, multiple times a week saying, well, can it do this or can it do that? And I think they even had a learning curve with some of the questions I was asking, because I would, my network is very high net worth, and they bring some challenges and some very odd tax situations to the table.
Very complex.
Yeah. So I it's a constant learning curve for me, but I immediately decided that I needed to partner and join in this mission. And I'm very passionate about helping people get this in place for them, because when we talk about the tax savings, that's just one little tiny thing. Somebody saying, hey, I've got this immediate need. I've got this property. I'm going to get nailed on taxes. Can you help me? And we turn that into a situation where it's like, yes, we can help you and we can do it quickly. But then that opens the door to now have literally a lifetime relationship with every single one of our clients, because it's not just a one-off situation that we're solving. We're solving that same challenge for the rest of their lives. Yep. Then we're adding in these other layers, the infinite banking policies. We're helping them grow tax-free wealth for the rest of their lives. They start coming to us with questions saying, hey, can it do this? Can it help me in my business? Can it help me there? Can it help me there? And the answer for the most part is always yes, it can help you with all of these things. And that is the value proposition on that for me has been off the charts. And for all of our clients, it's off the charts.
Yep.
And so I love being able to come in and solve one problem or one challenge and then stay in their lives forever and help them do other things to help them grow their business.
I haven't had one client yet that I've come across that we have not been able to help with the trust. Jordan talks about learning. We're learning every day. The tax code changes all the time. Tax strategies change all the time, right? So we're always finding new ways to use this trust, and it's pretty cool. So, I challenge anybody to bring any kind of complex situation to us, because the trust really is going to simplify the whole process for whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Guys, did we cover the infinite banking system part of things? The deferring taxes, keeping 50,000 and building an infinite banking system? Did we get into that?
Not yet.
We gotta cover that. Ooh. Well,
so yeah, I wanted to.
You guys have talked about that a couple of times about the infinite banking part of things, right? And I'm like, we're hearing all about the trust, but what is that whole building an infinite banking system all about?
Josh, I'll let you run with this, because this is the core value of Vortex banking.
Yeah, the infinite banking portion is just we're using a specially designed whole life policy with a dividend paying mutual company, where in a whole life policy, you get a guaranteed rate of return on your money, right? So let's say, for example, I drop $50,000 a year into a whole life policy that's designed the way that we do it, right? Well, every year I drop that money in there, I'm now earning interest on all of those dollars. But because it's a whole life policy, it's creating cash value, right? So the insurance company has what's called a non-direct recognition loan. So let's say I put 50,000 into a policy, and let's say 45,000 of that's available as cash value. Well, what infinite banking is that I am able to use my policy as a bank instead of using a bank as a bank. See, if I use a bank as a bank, I'm going to pay interest to the bank for borrowing the money, right? I'm probably going to pay compound interest, or whatever way they want to screw me on interest, right? Because that's what banks do, and that's how banks make money. Well, the whole concept of this whole life policy is to create your own bank, to where you've got this warehouse where every year you make money, you can take a portion of your income, you can put it into premium, which, by the way, gets you a death benefit, but it produces this cash value where I can now borrow from that, where the company doesn't recognize that loan off of where I'm earning interest. So again, let's say, for example, I've got $50,000 in my policy, and let's just say 50,000 is available. Well, let's say I take a loan for the whole $50,000 so that I can go and flip a property or something, right? I'm using my own money now instead of hard money or the bank's money or whatever. And now I'm in control of when I pay that back or not. Because see, with the insurance carrier, they already have my money. I already gave them 50,000. I have a death benefit that when I die, which I'm going to die, and they know I'm going to die, right? Which means they're on the hook for that death benefit eventually. So I might have, a $500,000 death benefit or whatever. Well, if I borrow 50,000 and I decide I never want to pay that back to the carrier, I don't have to. They're still going to pay me every year for the rest of my life on the money that I deposited in there, even though I borrowed it out, because I didn't borrow my original 50,000. I used that as collateral to borrow 50,000 from the insurance carrier's general fund. I'm using my death benefit as the collateral to pay that loan back if I never pay it back. So let's say next week I get hit by a truck, God forbid, and now the carrier has to pay out my death benefit to my wife. Well, my wife, let's say my death benefit's half a million, but I took 50,000 out, my wife will just get 450, right? So this allows us to control this policy and use it as a bank where every year we're putting more money in there, which is compounding the growth inside the policy, right? Now, when we bring the trust in, we're able to open up that modified endowment contract, which means, let's say, for example, I write my clients, let's say they want a $20,000 a year policy, right? Where they go, I want to commit to $20,000 a year, every year that I can put in this policy to start building wealth. Well, they can do that, but because of the trust, I can go to the carrier and I can get the carrier to approve them for a modified endowment contract, which means, let's say I have a client that goes, yeah, I want to do $20,000 a year, but I want the option to put $200,000 a year in if I can. Because think about it, Al, if I tell you, hey, the more money you put over here, the more interest you're earning. And by the way, you can still take that money out without interrupting any of that. Wouldn't you automatically want to put as much money in there as you can?
With more interest?
Because the alternative is doing what you're doing now, which is putting the money in your regular bank. Well, what happens when we put money in a regular bank?
Not doing anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything other than your balance goes up. And then as soon as you pay a bill, the balance goes back down, right? So you're always fighting this up and down, up and down, up and down every single month, right? That's the rat race. The way that we do it, we're taking our income and we're shoving it into this policy, right? Think about this. Wealthy people do not spend their income. If you're taking notes, write this down because I learned this from some very wealthy people. They said, Josh, wealthy people do not spend income. What's the definition of income? You traded your time for that money. Well, your time is more valuable than money, right? So what we do and what we teach with Infinite Banking is to value your time more than you value your money. When you earn income, you're trading your time for money. Your time is more valuable. The insurance company is going to value your time because they say, look, Al, if you deposit that income here, we're going to give you a death benefit that's worth way more than the dollars that you're giving us. We're going to allow you to access those dollars if you need them without interrupting any of the growth on the contract we signed with you. And you're going to use your death benefit as the collateral. So if you never want to pay the loan back, we're never going to call you like the bank will. We don't care because we know you're going to die someday. We're already investing the money that you gave us, right? Which means we're going to invest it for as long as you're living. They loaned you money out of their general fund, which is secured by your death benefit. So it's a benefit to the carrier to loan us money, right? And it's a benefit to us to put our money there because if I put my money at Chase or B of A or Wells Fargo, the only reason I keep money in those banks, because I still use them, is for the convenience of having this. Because a whole life policy doesn't have a debit card, right? And I don't like cash. So when I pay my bills,
everybody take notes on that card number.
Yeah, right. So when I pay my bills though, right? I like to use the convenience of having a check card or bank card. So that's all I really use that bank for. I put all my money into whole life because I want to trap that money into a financial system that is going to pay me annually every year a dividend tax-free on that income. So I'll just kind of wrap with this on that whole concept is, what if you knew this when you were 18 years old? Think about it. What if your parents and your grandparents did their banking this way, like I'm teaching my daughter, where you open up a whole life policy right when you're 18, which I already have, you should put them on your kids before that. But you open up a policy and you teach them to go work for money, take the income, put it in there, and then take policy loans out to go and do the things in life that they do. Imagine if you did that. How much money have you made in your entire lifetime? How many millions of dollars have you earned? Because $1 million in a whole life policy with a dividend paying mutual company will pay an average of $50,000 a year annually for the rest of your life. So if somebody tells me, well, I want to retire on $100,000, cool. I just need to build a policy and show you how to run about $2 million through that policy between now and the time you retire. That's the beauty of infinite banking, is that we can build retirement plans that are guaranteed because it's based on a guaranteed contract. So that is infinite banking. It is absolutely powerful. That's what got me into the business. But when you add the trust in there, it takes a concept that's been around for 20 years, that's dominated, right? That all the wealthy people and elite use. This trust just took it to the complete next level as far as the capability of being able to build, create, and preserve wealth.
Josh, I got to say, it's crazy how much knowledge you have when it comes to this stuff. That was like a whole 5-minute masterclass on this whole infinite banking strategy. And you gotta go check out the content Josh and Jordan have. I mean, tons of stuff out there. I mean, great stuff, Josh. I'm sure people are going to rewind that 5 minutes right there and watch that again, because there's just so much you covered, so much I don't know, and a lot of people don't know when it comes to that stuff. But of course, you'd rather take advantage of doing that stuff earlier on to get more of that interest later. So you don't want to miss that. Go.
Al, can I give you an example of one that we wrote it for a really good friend and partner of ours. His son just turned 18. And I said, well, let's take this a similar policy that we wrote for you that we're getting ready to execute, and let's match those numbers and see what it looks like for somebody who's 18, right? Which is exactly what Josh was just talking about. Like, if you had known this, or if your parents had known this and put this in your place, what does that look like? Well, we showed these numbers for a healthy 18-year-old and what this looks like over their life and what this policy looks like. The numbers are absolutely astronomical, right? Because of the trust, because of being able to run cash flow through the policy and all these advantages, we were showing by the time this individual is 29 years old, if they stick to the model and they overfund this policy, we were showing a 6-figure per year retirement income at 29 years old.
Careful,
right?
Jordan. You might make some people a little nauseous when you say that kind of stuff.
Well, it gets better. By the time this individual moves into their later years in their 70s and 80s, we're talking we call it a Vortex Legacy Fund, because your trust is actually going to receive this death benefit. We're talking like a $20 to $24 million death benefit that got built inside of this policy while they've had a six-figure a year retirement fund that it is compounding each year. Like, first year it might be, at 29 it might be 100,000. Next year it might be 120,000. Next year it compounds on itself. So 6-figure a year retirement income starting at 29 years old, and a potentially $24 million death benefit that got generated from overfunding one of these policies starting at 18. If you have children, and if you've got good cash flow, and if you've got, a business, and you have people like us showing you how to save tens of thousands of dollars in taxes from your business, capital gains, whatever it is, by putting this into your ecosystem, and then we come in and show you how to use that tax savings, like, you were going to pay the IRS this. So instead of instead of paying the IRS, we're just going to redirect that money into the infinite banking concept, where we call it Vortex because we're adding the trust, right? So we're keeping all the money in our ecosystem. If we show you how to take one of your 18-year-old children and retire them by 29 years old, retire them tax-free, 6-figure income for the rest of their life that grows each year that they can access, how absolutely incredible is that? And why aren't we taught this? Why is this not being taught? And that's why, I immediately partnered up with as far as I'm concerned, I'm launching a seminar, an educational seminar. We're going to do webinars weekly. We're going to do whatever we can to get this information out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy you two, partnering up for this, right? I mean, this is wild too. And it works, right? I mean, Josh, you've seen this for so long, and Jordan, even building out this whole education side to it, which is crazy cool. And a lot of people don't know about these kinds of things. And like you were talking about, I mean, people that should have started earlier with all the investing, imagine how much more money they could have made, right? Starting your IRA, not at 35 or 40, starting it at 18. I mean, imagine what that compound looks like over 40, 50 years at that point. So great stuff, guys. And we get questions live. That's what's great out there. All of you that are watching, you got any questions for Josh or Jordan? And we'll answer them live. I'll ask away. And we got 2 really interesting questions tonight. I don't know who it was. It says, what's the difference between whole life policy and fixed index annuity?
Honestly, I don't know much about fixed index annuity because I don't use them. I'm not a typical insurance agent because I came in through IBC. I know all of these. An annuity is completely different than a whole life policy, right? An annuity, I know you just pay into it and then it'll just pay out. You've got like a single pay immediate annuity. You've got some that are delayed that pay out down the road. The difference really with a whole life policy is that the money is available, it's flexible, and it's all in your control, right? Meaning as you're paying those premiums and the cash value is going up, you control all the money in and out of that policy versus a typical annuity. And again, I don't know real much about a fixed index specific
It's a
annuity.
savings. It's a tax-free, tax-deferred savings account, essentially. So
yeah, I mean, you get a little bit of interest on them, and all it does, it just creates payments throughout your lifetime. What
the
we're
immediate
showing you how
difference
to
is
do-
no death benefit.
Yeah, and no death benefit. But the biggest thing with the whole life is you're in control of it, right? It truly is a system that you're building at your own rate, and especially the way we design them where you can overfund them. Most of these annuities, right, they're fixed, right? If it's $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year, or it's just a one-time payment, like that, the money's in and that's it. Ours have a lot more flexibility, which is why we talk about them more as a banking system, right? Because when somebody's got a cash warehouse with the Vortex, they can just pay their normal premium, but they have the ability to continually overfund that thing, as more of an investment and a retirement strategy.
And with annuities, you can't spend the same dollar twice.
Yeah, no.
You can't. When it's in that annuity, it is earning, and the moment you remove it,
Yep. As soon as they pay you on it, then that money is now out. And
you lose the earning. With infinite banking, the money's locked in. You're borrowing against it, right? You're never removing it from its earning, it's earning that compound interest. So you're able to take the dollars that are here, you get a cash value on them, you take out a loan, you go spend it in another asset class or another opportunity. So you're essentially spending the same exact dollar twice. It's earning for you in 2 different places at the same time.
Now imagine if you had 10 policies and you paid the first policy. I'm about to blow your mind right now. And then you took a policy loan from policy 1 and then you paid the premium on policy 2. Then you took a policy loan from policy 2 to pay policy 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And now you use the same dollar 10 different times, and then you borrow it out of policy 10 and then go put it in the market.
It's not the same dollars earning multiple times.
So many different strategies.
Yeah, it's incredible. And what we do is we offer a free strategy session because everybody's different. Everybody's business model is so different, right? Even with real estate investors, every investor I talk to, their business model is a little bit different from the next guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we like to offer everybody a free strategy session because this is not a cookie cutter, strategy, right? The strategy changes with each client a little bit based on their scenario, based on they have an LLC or they have an S corp or they own a business or they have active income versus passive income, or they're doing real estate this way and this guy's doing it that way, right? So the strategy session, you can just reach out to Jordan or go on the website and we'll basically evaluate your scenario of where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. And then, we don't charge anything. We educate for free. We just provide the education to you about how that strategy could help you. And then you just decide, hey, I'm ready to move forward. And then we just hold your hand and walk you through the whole process. It's a very simple thing. We're not salespeople. I'm not here to convince anybody to do this. I know the people that need it and the people that know they need it. We just like to put the information out there because, again, this is really our passion. It's a ministry for us. It truly is, as you can see.
Yeah, no, I love it. And remember, I only got like 30 minutes of seeing you on stage.
I know.
You're getting an hour and a half of a lot of stuff that you guys see day in and day out and all the intricacies. And we probably haven't even scratched the surface about things. I know I can see that shaking head coming a long way, right? Like we haven't even dove deep on this stuff. So, we'll make sure we keep putting the info so people can reach out to you, get in touch with you, connect with you, Jordan, connect with you, Josh. That's going to be huge.
Absolutely.
I had another somebody else said, Jerry said, is there a limit to how much you can earn deposit into the life insurance policy?
There is a limit, and the limit is going to be based on your insurability. So everybody's life has a value on it, right? And this is where the insurance companies, they're really good at what they do, is being able to predict when you're going to die, right? So when you do a whole life policy, you're going to do an exam, right, where they're going to draw blood and you got to pee in a cup, right? They want to make sure your insides look as good as your outsides. And then basically they will give you a maximum insurable rate, right? So let's say the carrier comes back and goes, hey, we'll insure this guy for $2 million. Well, now based on your age and all of that $2 million is going to determine how much premium you can do to purchase that $2 million death benefit over time. So the max is going to be based off really your age, your health, and then lastly, your income, right? Because obviously they have to know that you have the income to be able to afford to pay for the policy. So those are the three things that they look at to determine that number. Now, the good thing about infinite banking and the good thing about having the Vortex system is once you max yourself out, you can use other bodies, right? Because again, we're using the trust to own these policies. So let's say I max out my insurability. Well, now I can go to my wife. Once I max her out, then I can go to each of my kids and I can max them out. And then as my business continues to grow, and I become more successful, which is the whole point of the whole structure of this whole thing, right? I can go back to the insurance company every year and tell them, hey, I'm still the same as far as my health, but I'm making more money now, meaning I'm worth more now, meaning they will up my insurability, right? So if my business is continuing to grow and everything is working within in my trust, every year I can go back and apply for more.
Cool. You guys providing so much valuable information and knowledge tonight. Again, anybody that wants to connect with these guys, Josh and Jordan, they're out there on Facebook. I know Jordan's constantly posting about things that can really be of value. And Josh, you're out there speaking. You guys are launching a new podcast coming out pretty soon. You want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, so it's going to be based on my book, The Intelligent Banker. And basically, we're going to do kind of what Al you do on your show. We're going to have, obviously, we're talking about having you come out. We just want to interview people around the country and see what people are doing and be able to just really introduce this concept to different worlds, I know we've been talking just really about real estate, but I have clients that are in the crypto world, right? They're going after capital gains on crypto. And see, we've always been told that would never happen, right? Because that it's crypto, right? Now the government wants to tax money that they didn't even create. So, I mean, just like the unrealized capital gains, we won't even get into that one now. I don't even know. I don't even know what that means because it doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's powerful stuff, man. In this podcast, we're gonna have real estate investors, and honestly, a lot of these folks that we're gonna be interviewing are gonna be our clients. So that way, you guys, as you join, you can hear from people that are actually using the trust, right? Where I'm not telling you their story, we're allowing them to come into our studio and actually tell their story because they want to get it out there, right? Our clients. What's interesting about our clients, and Jordan, you can back me up on this because you have clients. Our clients get as passionate about telling people about this as we do, because they get so much of a benefit and a value out of it. You know, it's almost like, think about this. If you're not paying taxes, why would you not tell all your friends and family about it? You know, like, you're going to do it naturally, right? And that is typically what we see with this business. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. You know, I've been in sales my whole life, and I feel like I finally am in a position where I don't have to be a salesperson anymore, because we're selling common sense. You know, we all know the tax system is rigged. We all know the government wants to squeeze as much out of us as we can. And now we've got a system that's legal, legitimate. It's been around for 500 years, and we just want to teach it to everybody that we can. And that's what that podcast is going to be all geared around, is all about education and free education. Because there are other people, and I won't mention names, but there's another guy in the country that teaches a similar strategy, but he charges a lot of money, meaning he's only going after the high echelon of people that have at least $100,000, to pay for this gentleman's time. So we go out and we teach it for free, and I'm really hoping that this podcast will make an impact in the country.
That's what I love about this is the free education, number one. Number two, we are teaching people to become their own banker legitimately. Yep. Like, the concept has been out there. It's been talked about. There's books out there. You know, it's been around for a long time, but we are actually there helping the client and teaching them how to play at that level and become their own banker, become an intelligent banker, and be able to keep more of their money, grow it tax-free for the rest of their lives, and just do something incredibly unique.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, the stuff that you guys are dropping on the episode tonight is huge. I mean, I'm sure there could be like multiple episodes about a lot of this stuff that you're doing, but you got to check out their content, the podcast that's dropping, and all the knowledge that Jordan and Josh have when it comes to this stuff. It's crazy. Again, saw them a couple months ago, and from there I was like, whoa. And then I see everything that Jordan's doing out in the world, and Josh is speaking. So it's fantastic, guys. So much stuff. If you missed it and just dropped in late, you got to go back and start from the beginning, because there's just so much information. Somebody asked, what's the website?
www.jordan.livewiws.com. I think It's on the screen right now.
There you go.
You can request a free strategy session right off of that page. And actually, Jordan, you want to go ahead and tell them how they can get a copy of this for free right off your website?
Absolutely. So if they type in that same website, www.jordan.livewiws.com/free book.
There you go.
So just add the /free book, put in your email address and your name, and then you will get emailed a digital copy of The Intelligent Banker, so you can read. It's a pretty short read, you guys. You can probably read. Half of the book is actually the book, and then the back half of the book is basically a trust executive summary. So this goes through everything that the trust does, why it's legal, how it's legal. And then it also goes through about 100 FAQ questions on infinite banking and the trust. So there's a tremendous amount of value inside the book. And we
cool, guys. Yeah, I'm sure everybody's going to check that out. Free download right there. Check it out. It's perfect. Guys, what an episode. I mean, I know I took in a lot. Like, I don't know a lot of that stuff at all. And I just can learn so much about what you guys see on the ground level, what you've been through in your businesses and how you've gotten here. And I love watching you guys on the socials and seeing what y'all are doing. So, again, while we're going through the final thoughts and final words, we'll make sure we drop all your contact info. Check out the Facebook group too. You guys got the Intelligent Banker Facebook group. That's like, you're blowing that up now. That's great. And you can find them on all the socials and all the websites. So guys, to wrap it up for tonight, what I normally do is I say final words, final thoughts. It could be anything on what people should look for, where you think things are headed, what's going on, what's the big takeaway. And I know everybody was loving this episode. Gina was watching, saying so much interesting information tonight. Jerry was saying awesome material. And people are saying, I'm definitely reaching out tomorrow, Jordan Michael. So guys, on the episode, which I've loved from the very beginning, final words, final thoughts on everything Intelligent Banker, Vortex Banking, Infinite Banking, and the non-grantor revocable trust. See, Josh, I got it.
Yeah.
There you go. I would, the takeaway is this: protect your family. The government's not going to do it. The politicians aren't going to do it. Bosses aren't going to do it. Friends aren't going to do it. You have to do it. You've got that. That's why we called it the Intelligent Banker, right? We want to create intelligent people that can protect their family and actually truly build wealth. So my takeaway would be, take this information seriously and just do due diligence. Reach out, get the free information, get the free book. And I promise you guys, this will change your life. Going back to earlier, some of you guys are probably like, why did he say this information is going to make you nauseous? Well, it made me nauseous because when I heard about this and the light bulb finally went off, because I actually paid attention and did due diligence, I realized how much money I was losing because I didn't know this. I made over $5 million in network marketing. That would equate to about $250,000 a year in tax-free interest I would be earning right now had someone introduced this to me before. So don't wait another day to learn about this, because all that time I lost equated out to a lot of money. And some of you guys are in a position right now where you're hearing about this at a time in your life way before I did, and you have a much better opportunity than I do. So don't pass this up. Just take the time to at least reach out and let us do a free strategy session for you. I promise you it'll be worth your time.
Cool.
I'm going to compound on that because I was already in my head saying that, every single client that I onboard that, goes through their due diligence period and, they want to talk to their CPAs and their attorneys and all that great stuff, which we want them to do. We want them to be, secure in knowing that we have their best interests at heart. But every single client, when we're done onboarding them and they start realizing that they're playing in this new environment, right? And they have access to these wonderful tools. The same thing happens to every single one of them. They say to themselves, I wish I would have known about this earlier. I wish I would have had these things set up for myself earlier. I wish my parents would have known about these things. And, you can't put anybody at fault because this information isn't publicly available. I am doing my best to make sure that it is publicly available. I'm very outspoken. You guys have seen my t-shirts and how I walk around every day and the message that I have on the back of this t-shirt. And I want to make sure everybody
pretty bold.
Yeah. I want to make sure everybody has access to this information because I don't want people interacting with me and then saying, I wish you would have told me about this, or, I want to be a part of everybody's success. And I want to say the same thing. Don't waste time. Don't allow this to pass you by. Don't sit back and say, 5 years later, when you realize how much money you're sending to an entity that does nothing for you, you don't want to, have those regrets later on. You want to start building this infrastructure now. You don't want to be one of those clients that is like, I wish I would have known this 30 years ago. I'd be on a beach, retired, not still working so hard. I wouldn't be, trying to continually build things. I would have had them built and I would have been done a lot sooner.
Yep.
So
Crazy.
That's my takeaway. I'm
No.
happy 38 years old. I learned about this now. Like my life is changed forever because of this.
Amazing. It's no better time to start than the present, right? So start now, don't wait. And if you wait, you're waiting too late. So get started with whatever you're doing. It's good. Guys, Josh, Jordan, loaded stuff on the show. I love it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for being on. I love meeting you both. Yeah, I love meeting you both. I love seeing the success grow. I love seeing the content grow. Can't wait to be on the Intelligent Banker podcast.
Awesome.
We'll make sure we get that in person. There's nothing like the in-person experience of what the studio you guys are building. So again, guys, anybody that wants to reach out to them, we have the contact. We'll keep putting it up there. But guys, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for being on, and I'll see you both soon.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having us, Al. Awesome, man. Great job.
All right, guys. Sounds good. I'll see you soon. Wow, there was so much info on the episode tonight. There was so much I didn't even have a clue about. And I learned things, and I'm continuing to learn things from these guys. Josh, if you've never checked out Josh, incredible speaker, powerful speaker when he gets on stage. I remember, again, when I saw him at Hero, the things he was talking about with the non-grantor revocable trust was wild, and some of the things that it can really bring and how it's been around for a long time is crazy. So you got to check that out. And then Jordan, Michael, Jordan's always posting things about all these things with the trust and saving and how to keep more money and save on the capital gains. So check these guys out. If you dropped in late, still late. I love how you guys are watching so late. It's amazing. I got no limits on the show, right? Doesn't have to stop after an hour. Doesn't have to stop after an hour 30. So if you guys jumped in late, you got to go back, watch it from the beginning, start from the very beginning, and they're going to walk you through. And I mean, I'm sure so many people got the takeaway of like the trust is really powerful, right? The non-grantor revocable trust is really powerful. But go back to the beginning, how they walk through the trust and then the infinite banking system and a lot of the things with the policies and compounding interest and all of those strategies that a lot of people ask about. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all for watching. I love all the interaction and comments and questions and people responding. I saw Chris was out there and Chris Long, he, participating on the chat. I loved everybody that's out there watching. So thank you. It's Monday night, and next week, I'm trying to think what was next week, what was happening. I don't even know. The schedule's been crazy lately. It's that time when it's like, traveling and being all over the place has started up again. Jason Matthews, that's it. Jason is on next Wednesday night, 9 p.m., all about the short-term Airbnb rentals. He's in that Tampa market, so you got to go check that out. It's going to be live. Ask your questions, come on the show. So it's a wrap, everybody. I will see everybody next week, and make sure you check out the Al Nicoletti Show, which is on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all those other places you can find it. And have a great night. I'll see you next time.